Whether it involves paranormal events or chilling accounts of actual crimes, we all have a fascination for a captivating, unsolved mystery. There is nothing more unsettling than a narrative that leaves you with more inquiries than resolutions. However, that is not the focus of our discussion today. Today, we will explore some of the most unsettling mysteries that have indeed been resolved, ranging from homicides to mythical creatures and even alleged interdimensional travelers.
Are you prepared to uncover the truth? In February 1959, a group of 9 Russian university students embarked on a camping expedition in the Ural Mountains, and they never returned. When the snow melted sufficiently for a search team to begin their quest, they discovered a horrifying and inexplicable scene. The group's tent was located torn open, with all of the hikers' clothing and equipment still inside, while the bodies of the group members were found scattered around the pass in various states of undress. Many of them exhibited fractured ribs and skulls, 2 had burns on their hands, and 1 was even missing her tongue and eyes. Even more bizarre, the nearby trees were devoid of branches, despite the tent remaining largely undisturbed. When the remains were returned home, the medical examiners were perplexed by their observations and attributed the cause of death to simply a compelling unknown force.
The incident, referred to as the Dyatlov Pass incident after the leader of the hiking team, Igor Dyatlov, quickly captured the public's attention and has since inspired numerous conspiracy theories. Some speculate it was due to clandestine nuclear weapons testing or Soviet mind control experiments. Others believe it could have been caused by extraterrestrial beings, vengeful spirits, or even a rogue, abominable snowman. For many years, it appeared that the truth might remain elusive, but in 2019, an unexpected revelation emerged. A team of scientists sought to investigate the theory that an avalanche could have been responsible for the deaths of Igor Dyatlov and his companions. Previously, it was believed that an avalanche could not have occurred on the gentle 30-degree incline where their campsite was located, thus dismissing it as a possible explanation. Nevertheless, when snow expert Johann Gaume and geotechnical engineer Alexander Perzin conducted their calculations, they discovered that a 30-degree slope is indeed steep enough for an avalanche to gain momentum. This was an intriguing hypothesis, but to thoroughly evaluate it, the scientists needed to perform a simulation, for which they recruited the assistance of the VFX team from Disney's 2013 blockbuster Frozen. It has been revealed that for the film, Disney animators created a software plugin capable of producing remarkably realistic snow effects. So realistic, in fact, that scientists managed to recreate the Dyatlov Pass campsite in a 3D simulation, conclusively demonstrating that an avalanche could have caused the campers' deaths and stripped branches from trees while leaving the tent unharmed.
Who claims that cartoons cannot provide valuable insights? Now let us transition from the icy terrains of Siberia to the warm shores of Australia. In 1948, an unidentified corpse was discovered on Somerton Beach in Adelaide, South Australia. The individual had no identification, all labels had been removed from his garments, and the only items found in his pockets were a comb, a pack of cigarettes, and a piece of paper inscribed with Tamam Shud, Farsi for "It is finished." This piece of paper was later determined to have been taken from a copy of the Bhagavad Gita, an ancient Hindu epic. Upon tracing his copy, investigators uncovered coded messages written on the inside cover of the book, codes that remain unsolved to this day. Despite these peculiar clues, the identity of the body could not be established, and the Somerton Man was interred the following year with a gravestone that reads, "Here lies the unknown man found on Somerton Beach." The most widely accepted theory regarding the identity of the Somerton Man is that he was a spy, potentially from the Soviet Union or the United States, who met his demise due to poisoning. However, even fingerprint databases yielded no results, leaving uncertainty in the air. Nevertheless, even long after the case was deemed cold, University professor Derek Abbott dedicated years to attempting to unravel the mystery. The pair successfully located the living descendants of the Mystery Man. It turns out he was not a spy at all, but rather a man named Carl Webb, who likely traveled from Melbourne to Adelaide to reconnect with his ex-wife, Dorothy Robertson. Thus, one aspect of the Somerton Man case has been resolved. However, despite knowing his identity, the circumstances surrounding his death remain unclear, as does the reason for the enigmatic note found in his pocket. The next mystery may be the most disturbing and unsettling of all, because it concerns you. Yes, you. Have you ever searched for yourself online only to discover your personal information listed on one of those public directory sites? Why is your information available on numerous random websites? The answer lies in data brokers profiting from selling your information to robocallers, spammers, and others seeking to learn more about you, such as your residents. This is why I am pleased to introduce today's sponsor, Aura. Aura can detect data brokers who are exposing your information and will submit opt-out requests on your behalf. Brokers are legally obligated to remove your information upon request, yet they complicate the process significantly. Allow Aura to manage this for you. You can try Aura free for 2 weeks by using my link. Additionally, Aura offers a wide range of services to safeguard you and your family from unseen online threats. It is incredibly simple to set up, eliminating the need to download multiple applications to access features such as parental controls, antivirus, VPN, password management, identity theft insurance, and more. In 2022, he collaborated with an American forensic expert named Colleen Fitzpatrick, who is known for her expertise in utilizing DNA to resolve cold cases. She employed DNA obtained from the Somerton Man. You receive everything at a single reasonable price. Allow Aura to handle the challenging task of ensuring your online safety, enabling you to concentrate on other responsibilities with tranquility. You have the option to let individuals continue to exploit and benefit from your private information, or you can visit aura.com/infographics to initiate your 2-week free trial, also provided below in the description. However, let us return to enigmas that do not concern you. Or at least we hope they do not. If you are someone who harbors a fear of the ocean, you may have encountered a phenomenon known as the bloop. In 1997, an overwhelming sound was recorded on several underwater sonar systems located over 5,000 kilometers apart. Researchers were puzzled regarding the origin of the sound, but the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration concluded that it was of organic origin. When you hear the term organic, you might be inclined to think, as many would, of a sea monster. Perhaps it is an undiscovered species of whale, a colossal shark, or even Cthulhu snoring as he rests in his subterranean city. The response may not be as thrilling, and depending on your perspective regarding sea monsters, you might feel either relieved or let down. It appears that the NOAA has detected several bloop sounds over the years, and they possess a substantial understanding of their origin. Seismologist Robert Zodiac states that the frequency of the bloop matches recordings of ice quakes occurring in Antarctica. An ice quake is fundamentally the process that leads to the formation of icebergs. Polar glaciers respond to heat by fracturing, and when segments of ice detach from the main body, an iceberg is formed. Ice quakes can also be recorded when icebergs drift into warmer waters and break into smaller pieces as they melt. Considering that the bloop's source was identified off the coast of South America, it is quite plausible that the sound originated from a breaking iceberg. In relation to icebergs, one of the most renowned and enigmatic lost expeditions in history was the Franklin expedition. In 1848, the vessels Erebus and Terror disappeared without a trace during their quest to discover a northwest passage through the Arctic. Following the disappearance of his crew, Sir John Franklin's widow spearheaded what has been described as the most extensive and costly search in maritime history, even recruiting a psychic at one stage. Yet no evidence was ever uncovered. What truly transpired? In 2008, Canadian Prime Minister Stephen Harper declared the initiation of a new investigation to uncover the truth. This was a shrewd political strategy on his part to foster Canadian nationalism while simultaneously monitoring Russian vessels in the Arctic waters. The search commenced in 2014, but due to Harper's stringent oversight of all federal scientific missions, the findings of the search were kept confidential, even from the Coast Guard. Despite the confidentiality surrounding the matter, the team successfully located the wreckage of the Erebus near the shores of King William Island, in sufficiently shallow waters that it was visible from the air. The wreck was remarkably well preserved in the frigid waters, and divers exploring the site discovered a note in Franklin's cabin that verified the captain's death occurred prior to the abandonment of the ships. However, the location of his body remains uncertain, and speculation continues that his crew may have interred him in the ice at an undisclosed location. Between 1979 and 1986, the residents of Southern California lived in fear due to a mysterious murderer. The initial victims, a couple from Goleta, managed to defend themselves and alert their neighbors for assistance, but the assailant escaped, and it would not be long before he attacked again. On December 30, 1979, another couple was shot dead in their residence in the same town. Over the subsequent decade, 3 additional couples and 2 individual women were discovered either shot or bludgeoned in their homes located in Ventura, Dana Point, and Irvine. The perpetrator became known as the Night Stalker, and later as the original Night Stalker, to distinguish him from Richard Ramirez, another serial killer with a comparable modus operandi. Law enforcement had no substantial leads, however. At least one detective in Sacramento speculated that the original Night Stalker was the same individual as the notorious serial killer who had assaulted numerous women in and around Sacramento, leaving behind several unsettling voice messages for the police. In 2001, DNA evidence would officially link the 2 cases, yet they were still unable to ascertain the identity of this deranged individual. In 2013, writer Michelle McNamara began her investigation and discovered that numerous unsolved murders and crime sprees throughout California exhibited characteristics similar to those of the original Night Stalker. She formulated a hypothesis. Could he also be the Visalia ransacker and the Diamond Knot Killer? McNamara introduced the term Golden State Killer in her book, I'll Be Gone in the Dark, which was released 2 years following her untimely death from an opiate overdose in 2016. The publication of this book heightened public awareness and prompted law enforcement to take the concept of the Golden State Killer more seriously. Utilizing DNA evidence, the Sacramento police successfully linked evidence from over 50 unsolved assaults and homicides to a suspect, retired police officer Joseph James DeAngelo. DeAngelo admitted to being the Golden State Killer and received multiple life sentences without the possibility of parole. Continuing with the subject of serial killers, we turn our attention to one of the most disturbing unsolved cases in history, the Zodiac murders. The Zodiac Killer specifically targeted couples in their vehicles and is confirmed to have murdered 5 individuals in San Francisco. However, the most notorious aspect of his crimes was the coded messages he sent to newspapers throughout the city. Some of those notes were deciphered, while others remained almost impossible to decode. We use the term almost impossible because, in 2020, a team of cryptography specialists successfully deciphered one of the Zodiac Killer's most enigmatic messages. The codebreakers included American cryptologist and Zodiac investigator David Orenchak, Australian mathematician Sam Blake, and Belgian programmer Joel van Eyck. Together, these individuals discovered a solution to the Zodiac's 340 cipher, which is regarded as a holy grail for codebreakers. By utilizing a program named AsDecrypt and a university supercomputer known as Spartan. This endeavor required extensive trial and error over several months. In fact, the trio of codebreakers tested approximately 650,000 potential combinations before achieving a result. For their contributions, Blake, Van Eyck, and Oranchek received official recognition from the FBI. Unfortunately, the note did not disclose the killer's identity as some had anticipated. Nevertheless, this represents a significant breakthrough that contributes another piece to the Zodiac mystery. The Salish Sea, a body of water located between western Canada and Washington State, USA, is an otherwise ordinary and unremarkable area, except for one peculiar detail. Since 2007, human feet have begun to wash ashore on the beaches. The initial foot was discovered on August 20, 2007, on Jedediah Island, and it was not the final one. Typically, the feet are found encased in sneakers, although a few were discovered in hiking boots, and the majority were never paired with their counterparts. Speculations varied from airplane crash debris to the remains of individuals who perished in the 2004 Boxing Day tsunami, and even to the possibility of a serial killer. But DNA analysis has since revealed that the true explanation for this enigma is more sorrowful. These feet were linked to several missing person cases in the vicinity, and it is highly probable that these individuals were victims of accidental drownings or people who fell from the bridge spanning the Salish Sea. So why are only the feet found? The explanation lies in basic physics. The ankles represent one of the most fragile sections of the body, causing the feet and hands to be the first to separate due to decomposition and animal interference. Furthermore, as sneaker soles are constructed from buoyant foam rubber, the severed foot rises to the surface, where the tide transports it to the beach. In 1954, customs officials at Tokyo Airport encountered a perplexing situation when a man attempted to enter the nation using a passport from a non-existent country. The individual, known as John Allen Zegras, possessed a passport from a nation referred to Taurid, a place that none of the customs officials had ever encountered. Zegras was detained for questioning and requested to identify his home country on a map. He became perplexed and irate, asserting that the maps must be inaccurate, as the location where Taurid was indicated was the Principality of Andorra, a place he had never heard of. Subsequently, Zegras was taken into custody and reportedly disappeared overnight. Was John Allen Zegras from an alternate reality? Not quite, unless one interprets "from an alternate reality" as deceiving. A British newspaper article from 1960 revealed that John Allen Zegras was well known to both the British and American authorities for utilizing fraudulent passports and traveling under assumed identities. Zegras maneuvered his way across the globe by masquerading as a high-ranking diplomat from Tamanrasset, the capital of Tuared, a city and nation he claimed existed in sub-Saharan Africa, but which he had entirely fabricated. His counterfeit passport even featured a national motto inscribed upon it, Roch Ublai Octra Negusi Habesi Trop Turapa. This motto was also devoid of meaning, yet it enhanced the passport's appearance of legitimacy and facilitated Zegras's entry into numerous countries across Africa, Europe, and Asia. It just so happened that the border officials in Tokyo were the first to verify Zegras's assertions, and his bewildering attempts to reinforce the falsehood gave rise to the speculation that he hailed from another dimension. The narrative regarding his disappearance was likely exaggerated later to introduce a final eerie element to the tale. In our security-aware era, it may appear odd that an individual could travel so far using a fraudulent passport. However, during the 1950s, prior to the widespread use of computers, one could evade detection much more easily. There is no doubt that the introduction of DNA evidence has significantly transformed the resolution of cold cases, yet it is unlikely that it can resolve every unsolved homicide, correct? Perhaps not, but in 2021, law enforcement officials in Montana, USA, revealed that they had successfully solved the oldest cold case using DNA evidence.
Patricia Kalitsky and Lloyd Duane Bogle, two teenagers from Great Falls, Montana, were viciously murdered while parked at a local lover's lane back in 1956. Initial investigations uncovered a few leads, but no suspects were ever apprehended, and ultimately the case went cold. This changed in 2012 when Detective Sergeant John Cadner was tasked with digitizing the case files.
He conceived the idea of exploring what DNA tests might reveal. It was discovered that, although DNA testing would not be feasible for several decades, the detectives in 1956 had collected a vaginal swab from Patricia Kalitsky to ascertain whether she had been sexually assaulted. The microscope slides from that swab remained in evidence and had been preserved sufficiently to allow for DNA testing.
In 2019, motivated by the apprehension of the Golden State Killer, Detective Cadner reached out to a laboratory known as Bode Technology to investigate any potential living relatives of the perpetrator. The analysis resulted in a match: Kenneth Gold, a resident of Missouri who had been living in Great Falls during the time of the murders. After 65 years, justice was finally served, in a manner of speaking. Unfortunately, Gould had already passed away in 2007. Nevertheless, despite the killer never facing legal repercussions, the families of the victims were able to achieve some much-deserved closure. In 1976, when the Viking orbiter transmitted images back to NASA from Mars, scientists were astonished to discover that one of the mountains captured in the photographs bore a striking resemblance to a human face. The face on Mars quickly became a focal point in the ongoing discussion regarding humanity's solitude in the universe. Was it the result of artificial carving by an ancient Martian civilization? Regrettably, this theory appears unlikely. Subsequent orbiters that have photographed the Cydonia region of the Red Planet have provided different perspectives of the so-called face, utilizing higher resolution cameras. What these images have disclosed is that what initially appeared to be two eyes, a nose, and a mouth were merely shadows created by naturally occurring craters on the mesa. However, for those who remain hopeful, this does not definitively rule out the existence of Martians. It simply indicates that they were not sculpting faces into their mountainous terrain.
Now, let us transition from space to Spain. In 1971, the Pereira family, residing in Belmez, Spain, experienced a peculiar ghostly phenomenon. Faces began to emerge on their concrete floors. They attempted various methods to remove them, yet inexplicably the faces reappeared the following day. Even after completely replacing the floor, the faces continued to manifest. As soon as the new concrete was set, the faces returned.
Before long, the house was inundated with journalists, tourists, and paranormal investigators, all eager to uncover the source of this mystery. There was no indication of paint or dye, leaving everyone perplexed. Even today, the origin of these faces remains unclear, aside from the realm of paranormal activity. Just kidding. It was a clever ruse orchestrated by some inventive homeowners seeking to make a little extra money. While some accounts may suggest this is an unsolved enigma, it was actually resolved quite swiftly. The Spanish Ministry of the Interior initiated an independent investigation, which revealed that although there was no evidence of paint or dye, there was substantial proof that the stains resulted from rapid oxidation. The method used to create the faces was relatively simple. They were imprinted onto the floor using a combination of soot and vinegar, which left behind prominent black marks. In 1908, a massive explosion occurred in Tunguska, Siberia, which felled over 80 million trees and was bright enough to illuminate the sky as far away as England. Today, if an event of that nature were to occur, we might speculate that it was the detonation of a nuclear warhead. However, it is important to remember that this incident took place 6 years prior to the onset of World War I, and the atomic bomb was still considered a concept of science fiction. So, what could have led to such extensive destruction? Could it have been alien invaders, a miniature black hole, or perhaps a clandestine steampunk death ray? It required scientists a full century of investigation to arrive at any definitive conclusions, but we now possess a fairly clear understanding of what likely triggered the Tunguska explosion. In 2009, researchers from Cornell University discovered that the accounts of the luminous skies over Europe following the explosion bore a striking resemblance to the noctilucent clouds generated by space shuttle launches. While it is evident that space shuttles were non-existent in 1908, noctilucent clouds can also form naturally due to ice crystals from a comet's tail entering the atmosphere. Indeed, scientists now postulate that the Tunguska explosion was the result of a substantial comet entering the atmosphere and explosively vaporizing just above the forest. It is theorized that significant cosmic impacts of this nature occur approximately once every few centuries. So if fortune favors us, we may not expect another for some time. Finally, we have saved the most intriguing case for last, and believe us, this one is quite peculiar. In 1944, when a group of individuals in Mattoon, Illinois, began to exhibit strange and unexplained symptoms, the local newspaper suggested it was the act of a deranged assailant using poison gas. Throughout September of that year, numerous residents reported a foul odor, followed by episodes of vomiting, dizziness, and unconsciousness, symptoms that were attributed to the so-called Mad Gasser of Mattoon. Despite the heightened public awareness and infamy, the Mad Gasser was never apprehended, and whoever he was vanished as swiftly as he had appeared. How was he able to elude law enforcement so effortlessly, despite being such a notorious criminal? It is likely that he was not as prolific as the media portrayed him to be. The most plausible explanation is a combination of isolated incidents and mass hysteria. The symptoms described by the victims align with exposure to carbon tetrachloride, a contaminant produced by the nearby Atlas Imperial factory. Regarding the incidents where an attacker was seen, there is indeed a suspect who may have been involved. In his book, The Mad Gasser of Mattoon, Dispelling the Hysteria, author Scott Maruna identifies a local eccentric named Farley Llewellyn, a chemistry student known for causing disturbances with his experiments. Maruna suggests that Llewellyn was responsible for a few of the Mad Gasser sightings, which heightened people's sensitivity to unusual odors and air pollution that they might have otherwise overlooked.